My brothers and sisters, sometimes, the most beloved to Allah are tested the most. You might feel broken, abandoned, or completely alone. But remember, the weight of your pain could be the sign of your purpose. The chosen ones, those Allah has destined for greatness, are often misunderstood, isolated, and put through trials not to break them, but to build them. Today, let us reflect on why the chosen ones often feel lonely or broken, and how that very pain could be a divine preparation. Loneliness, for many, is a painful and confusing experience. It can feel like abandonment, rejection, or even punishment. But in the sight of Allah, it is often something far more meaningful. When a person is chosen by Allah for a special purpose, when they are being prepared for something greater, they are sometimes separated from the crowd. This separation is not a rejection. It is elevation. It is a sign that Allah wants that person to turn away from the distractions of the world and toward Him alone. Throughout life, we often seek validation from people. We want to feel included, to be understood, and to be surrounded by love and support. But when Allah wants to elevate someone spiritually, He removes these worldly comforts. It may come in the form of friends leaving, being misunderstood by family, or even feeling disconnected in a room full of people. This painful void is not meant to destroy the heart, it is meant to purify it. Allah is calling the individual to Himself, away from everything else, so that they rely solely on Him. That kind of elevation cannot happen when the heart is too attached to the world. One of the reasons chosen individuals feel lonely is because their journey is not ordinary. They walk a path not everyone is meant to understand. They carry a burden most are not built to carry. When a soul is chosen by Allah, it means that soul has been entrusted with a unique test, a unique calling. That comes with unique isolation. The loneliness that follows is part of the preparation. It forces the person to seek closeness with their Creator, to build a connection with Allah that is unshakable, because it is born in solitude. This loneliness is also a shield. Sometimes, Allah removes people from our lives to protect us. There may be influences or relationships that are quietly harming our iman, even if they appear good on the surface. By taking those away, Allah is purifying the environment of the chosen one. He is making space in their life, not to leave them empty, but to fill them with something better. That something better is the awareness of His presence, the sweetness of talking to Him in sujood, the strength that comes from crying to Him in the middle of the night when the world is asleep. When a person is chosen, they may also begin to see the world differently. What once entertained them no longer appeals to them. Conversations that once excited them now feel shallow. This is because Allah is shifting their heart, detaching it from the dunya. The people around them might not understand the change. They may say things like, "You've changed," or "You're not like before." That is true. The person has changed. They are being elevated. Their soul is beginning to recognize that its true home is not here. It is with Allah. This process of transformation is lonely, not because it is wrong, but because it is rare. When we look into the lives of the prophets, peace be upon them all, a pattern begins to emerge. One of deep pain, isolation, and profound loneliness. These were the most beloved individuals to Allah, yet they experienced some of the most heartbreaking forms of solitude. Not because they were unloved, but because their missions were extraordinary. Allah chose them for tasks that required hearts fortified through isolation, and strength developed through pain. Their loneliness was not an accident, it was a deliberate part of their preparation and elevation. Take the example of Prophet Ibrahim a.s. He stood alone against an entire nation, including his own father. He was thrown into the fire for refusing to worship idols, and not a soul stood beside him. Yet in that very moment of total abandonment by creation, he found Allah's presence so powerful that the fire became cool and peaceful for him. That loneliness was a test, but it was also a sign that he had reached a level of trust in Allah that few ever attain. His strength wasn't in numbers, it was in tawakkul, complete reliance on his Creator. Consider the life of Prophet Musa a.s. He fled Egypt in fear, alone and uncertain. He wandered in the desert with no provisions, no companionship, and no plan. When he reached Madian and sat under a tree, exhausted and broken, he cried out to Allah, acknowledging his complete dependence. That moment of loneliness and desperation led to his eventual appointment as a prophet. The pain was part of the path. Allah did not abandon him, rather, He was shaping him for something monumental. Then we look at the Sirah of Prophet Muhammad From a very young age, he experienced loss after loss. His father before birth, his mother at 6, his grandfather at 8. He knew the age of being an orphan, of not having a place to fully belong. And yet, that very sense of being alone trained his heart to depend only on Allah. During the most critical points in his prophethood, he was alone in the cave of Hira, alone in Taif when rejected and stoned, and even alone in his own home when the weight of revelation would make him tremble. People misunderstood him, rejected him, called him a liar, even those closest to him at one point. Still, his connection to Allah never wavered. These stories are not simply historical. They are reminders that loneliness has always been part of the journey of the chosen. When a soul is meant for something higher, it will often feel like it doesn't belong among the ordinary. The pain that the prophets felt was not a sign of failure. It was a sign that their hearts were being refined. Their mission was divine, and their pain was part of the divine plan. Their solitude wasn't empty. It was filled with silent conversations with their Lord, with prayers that moved mountains, with a resilience only Allah could have instilled within them. Brokenness is a state many people try to avoid or hide, but in the eyes of Allah, it can be a deeply transformative experience. When a person feels broken, emotionally drained, spiritually numb, mentally exhausted, it often signals the beginning of a spiritual awakening. It is in this broken state that the heart becomes soft, the ego is shattered, and the soul becomes truly receptive to divine guidance. Allah allows brokenness not to punish, but to awaken, to redirect, and to rebuild something stronger than before. When a person is whole and surrounded by ease, they may begin to rely on themselves, forgetting their need for Allah. But when life breaks them, through loss, betrayal, failure, or grief, they are forced to look beyond the material. They begin to seek comfort not in people or things, but in the one who never leaves. This shift in focus is the essence of awakening. It brings clarity, it realigns priorities, and it reminds the soul that nothing in this world is guaranteed except Allah's presence. Brokenness strips away illusions. It reveals how fragile our plans are, how temporary our relationships can be, and how little control we truly have. These realizations, though painful, are necessary for spiritual growth. They humble the heart. And a humble heart is one that Allah loves. When a person feels broken, they often fall into sujood with a sincerity they've never experienced before. Their dust come from the depths of their soul. Their tears carry the weight of their truth. And in that moment, they begin to taste the sweetness of true connection with Allah. Should be. In the Quran, there are countless examples of people who reach their highest point after being at their lowest. Maryam A.S. was in such emotional agony during childbirth that she wished for death, yet shortly after, she became the mother of one of the greatest prophets. Yunus A.S. was swallowed by a whale in the darkness of the sea, isolated and broken, but from that place of despair, he called upon Allah with sincerity, and he was saved. These moments of brokenness were not signs of weakness, they were signs that Allah was about to bring something better. Sometimes Allah breaks the heart to remove what doesn't belong there. It may be pride, attachment, arrogance, or even love for something harmful. That breaking process is not meant to destroy. It is meant to cleanse. Once the heart is emptied of what distracts, it becomes ready to receive what truly benefits. The pain creates space for wisdom. The sadness opens the door for compassion. The weakness becomes the source of strength, because now, that strength is not self-created. It is drawn directly from the connection with Allah. A broken soul often learns more than one that has never suffered. It develops patience, resilience, and a deeper understanding of others. Through pain, the chosen ones often discover their true selves. They find their purpose, their voice, and most importantly, their place in the plan of Allah. In the divine wisdom of Allah, tests are not random acts of hardship. They are tailored, measured, and purposeful. When Allah chooses someone for a higher path, He tests them, not to push them away, but to bring them closer. These trials are not a sign of rejection but a sign of selection. The greater the purpose, the greater the preparation. And preparation often comes through difficulty, loss, and struggle. A person does not become refined through ease, but through resistance and hardship that demand inner strength and sincere faith. The lives of the prophets and righteous people are filled with examples of this truth. Every prophet went through a series of severe trials before and during their mission. Prophet Yusuf was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a well, sold into slavery, and imprisoned unjustly. Each test stripped him of worldly comfort but elevated his status in the eyes of Allah. Those moments of pain were not signs that he was forgotten. They were evidence that he was chosen. Every stage of his test served a divine purpose, shaping him into the leader and role model he eventually became. When Allah loves someone and wants to raise their rank, He puts them through challenges that will expose their sincerity, test their patience, and polish their character. These tests are like spiritual training grounds. Just as gold must be purified in fire, a believer's heart must be refined through hardship. The pain felt in trials is not meaningless. It is often the very tool that brings a person to their knees in prayer, that makes them reflect, that forces them to detach from the dunya and seek meaning in the unseen. Being chosen does not always feel like a blessing in the moment. It can feel like rejection, abandonment, or injustice. But what the heart interprets as suffering, the soul often recognizes as awakening. A test from Allah is a sign that He sees something in you that others don't. It is a sign that He is investing in your growth. He is preparing you for something greater, something that requires a higher level of faith and understanding. And for that, He must train you in ways that might feel heavy. Tests also reveal the truth of a person's heart. It is easy to have faith when everything is going well, but it is during the storms of life that true belief is revealed. When someone remains patient, grateful, and faithful during their darkest hours, they are proving their sincerity to Allah. That sincerity is beloved to Him. Sometimes, the test is not about the result, but about who you become through the process. The struggle refines the believer, strengthens their connection with Allah, and builds qualities like sabr, tawakkul, humility, and compassion. Qualities that are essential for those whom Allah chooses to carry a message or serve a greater cause. Those who are tested often are not being punished. They are being prepared. They are being molded into someone capable of carrying the weight of responsibility, truth, and guidance. True strength is not always built in moments of ease or surrounded by the comfort of others. It is often built in solitude, in the quiet moments when no one sees the struggle, and in the times when a person feels completely alone. This kind of isolation is not empty. It is a sacred space where the soul learns to stand firmly, without needing constant reassurance from others. When Allah isolates someone, it is not to punish them, but to prepare them. He pulls them away from the noise of the world, so they can hear Him more clearly. He removes the distractions so their heart can be polished. In that quiet space, a person learns reliance not on people, not on status, not on wealth, but on Allah alone. There is a wisdom in why chosen individuals often go through periods of loneliness. It is because what they are being prepared for requires an inner resilience that can only be forged in silence. When a person is constantly surrounded by people, by praise, by attention, it is easy to become dependent on that environment. But when Allah takes all of that away, the individual is left to face themselves. They begin to recognize their weaknesses, their flaws, and the illusions they held about control and independence. It is in this stripped-down state that they begin to rebuild, not through their own strength, but through the strength that comes from sincere submission to Allah. Solitude teaches discipline. When there is no one to impress, no one to lean on, and no one to give immediate comfort, the believer learns to act for the sake of Allah alone. Their worship becomes more sincere, their prayers become deeper, their intentions become purified. They are no longer doing good because of the eyes watching them, but because they have internalized a relationship with Allah that motivates them to act with yusun. This kind of strength cannot be taught in crowds, it must be experienced alone. There are moments in life when the soul craves companionship, understanding, and validation, but when none of that is available, it begins to turn inward, and ultimately, upward. The pain of not being understood by people forces the heart to find peace in being understood by its creator. The Prophet Muhammad spent long periods in the cave of Hira before prophethood, reflecting and detaching from society. That isolation was not wasted time. It was spiritual training. He was learning how to be alone with his thoughts, how to reflect on the purpose of life, and how to draw near to the Creator without distraction. When revelation finally came, his heart was already prepared to carry it. A soul that has been alone with Allah is unshakable. It is not swayed by praise, nor broken by criticism. It does not rely on the approval of others to feel valuable. This kind of strength comes from knowing that Allah is enough. When a person has walked through the darkest valleys with only Allah by their side, they emerge with a confidence that cannot be faked. They know what it means to be sustained by divine mercy. They know what it means to cry in sujood with no one around and to rise with peace in their chest. That peace is not from the world, it is a gift from the one who never leaves. In solitude, the heart becomes quiet enough to hear the whispers of the soul. It becomes sensitive to the pull of Iman and the presence of Allah. The distractions of the dunya fade, and what remains is the clarity of purpose. A chosen one often feels the weight of responsibility even before it is visible to others. They may not fully understand why they are being distanced from people, why relationships are falling apart, or why the things that used to comfort them now feel empty. But deep down, they begin to sense that something is shifting within them. That shift is the birth of spiritual maturity. The trials that come with solitude are not just emotional, they are deeply spiritual. Shaitan will try to attack a person in isolation, planting seeds of doubt, fear, and hopelessness. But this is also where the most profound victories happen. When a person responds to those whispers with remembrance of Allah, with dhikr, Quran, and with dua, they begin to fortify their soul. Every tear shed in solitude, every verse recited in the quiet of the night, and every whispered prayer becomes a building block of unshakable strength. Even in physical weakness, spiritual strength can grow. When the body is exhausted, when the emotions are overwhelmed, and when life feels too heavy, the act of turning to Allah in that state is an incredible form of strength. It means the heart has not given up. It means faith is still alive. That moment when a believer says, Ya Allah, I can't do this alone, is the very moment they begin to walk with a strength that does not come from themselves, but from Allah's support. That is the strength that moves mountains. That is the strength that changes lives. The people who are chosen for greater missions are not the ones who always appear strong on the outside. They are the ones who, behind closed doors, have wrestled with their fears, fought through their pain, and chosen to trust Allah, even when nothing made sense. They are the ones who prayed when no one was watching, who gave when no one was thanking them, and who stayed patient when no one acknowledged their struggle. Their strength is not in their image. It is in their sincerity. True strength is not about how loud a person speaks, how many followers they have, or how perfect their life looks. It is about how deeply they have connected with Allah in the moments no one else saw. It is about how they kept going when everything inside them wanted to give up. It is about how they smile at others while carrying silent battles in their chest. This kind of strength is a gift from Allah, cultivated in the sacred space of solitude. It is a reflection of a heart that has surrendered fully, loved deeply, and risen from pain with a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. The chosen ones often walk lonely roads, not because they are weak, but because they are being taught to draw their strength from a place the world cannot see. Their training ground is the quiet, their teacher is pain, and their companion is the remembrance of Allah. They emerge not needing the world, but ready to serve it, having already found everything they need in the presence of their Lord. In a world where value is often measured by likes, followers, recognition, and applause, it becomes difficult to separate true worth from public opinion. People are taught, directly or indirectly, that being accepted, praised, or loved by others is a sign of success and significance. But in the sight of Allah, value is something entirely different. It is not determined by the opinions of others, nor by how popular or visible someone is. Allah looks at the heart, the sincerity, the intention, and the steadfastness of the soul when no one else is watching. The chosen ones, those whom Allah selects for a special purpose, are often not the ones celebrated in the world. In fact, many of them are rejected, ridiculed, or completely ignored by society. But their value remains untouched, because it is defined by their standing with Allah, not by their acceptance among people. There are individuals who spend their lives doing acts of goodness, serving others, standing for truth, and struggling to hold on to their faith, and yet they go unrecognized. They may feel invisible, their efforts may be dismissed, their sacrifices may be overlooked. This can feel painful, especially when they see others being praised for doing far less, or for doing things that have no spiritual value. But this is where the test lies. When someone is truly chosen by Allah, He removes the need for validation from creation. He allows that person to be unseen, so they can focus on being sincere. Their actions are not diluted by the desire to be appreciated. Their motivation is purified, because they are working for the one whose reward is eternal. There is a deep wisdom in why Allah hides some of His most beloved servants from the spotlight. Public praise can be dangerous. It can lead to arrogance, complacency, and the corruption of intentions. The heart begins to crave approval, and worship becomes performance. But when a person is ignored or criticized, and yet they continue to do good, continue to worship, continue to serve others, it proves that their heart is rooted in something greater. Their value is not based on how others see them, but on how Allah sees them. And Allah never overlooks sincerity, even if the whole world does. The Prophet Muhammad himself was once mocked, accused, and rejected by his own people. They called him a liar, a madman, a magician. The very people who knew his honesty and character turned against him when he spoke the truth. Did that make him any less valuable? On the contrary, it proved how the rejection of people often increases a person's rank with Allah. The value of the Prophet was not dependent on Quraysh accepting him. It was rooted in the fact that he was chosen by Allah to carry the final message. His worth was divine, not social.